Welcome back to season 2 of our Miss Scarlet Summer. We're here to talk about episode 5 today. I'm Christina Zeiters.
And I'm Tom Downing. And please watch along with us on the PBS video app or by visiting witf.org/passport.
And then you can join us on your favorite podcast platform, or you can watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/@WITFmosaic.
And we're still doing the postscript bingo, so you can go to...
Oh, yeah. You can go to witf.org/PSBingo to print your own card. And then as you spot the clues, as you watch along with us, or you can go back and watch, you just mark them off and then email us at ps@witf.org. And I took your line. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
At the end of the season, we'll send you a YouTube link to a special bonus episode where we reveal all of the clues.
And we're playing along too, and we're comparing notes, and
You're doing much better than I am because I'm behind on my bingo watching. So
well, we can learn at the end with everyone else. So.
Yes.
So let's get into the episode.
Yeah, let's do it. So in the opening, we see William picking up a paper, walking through the little town shops in town. Yeah. He picks up the usual from one of the shopkeepers. Somebody says hi to him. It's George. I think he says hi, George, back.
He's on a first name basis with everyone here.
You can tell he's done this before.
It seems like part of his routine is he picks up he buys like some food, and then he gives this food to an old man as he's walking by.
Yeah,
gives him information.
He asks any news for me, and he goes, nope, nothing today. And then he gets his sandwich. I assume it's a breakfast sandwich of some sort. He walks by Violet, who I think is working the streets as a night girl, but she looks like maybe she's a higher end clientele. Yeah. And she smiles at him as he walks by. So apparently they're friendly.
There's some history there that we don't know about.
We don't know about it.
But yeah, it seems like when he met with the old man before that though. I always had this like question of like how Duke knew where to be at any given time, but he has he knows
he has
London.
Eyes everywhere.
Like
he works a little bit like Moses.
A little bit,
yeah. Maybe this is why they're such rivals.
Yeah, they're in similar spheres, but just slightly off the phase a little bit from one another. So
so he has informants.
Yes.
That he pays with food.
Yep.
It works out. I mean, I work for food. That's a fair point.
And so he arrives at Scotland Yard, and he greets Frederick, who's the officer, and then he also greets Norman, who's the criminal getting pulled out of the back of the carriage.
I missed that. So Norman's a normal
Frederick
occurrence.
Duke, and then he's like Norman, and so that it's just funny. And then he looks at there's the bronze plaque outside of Scotland Yard, and he taps the bronze plaque for luck, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know why he does it, but
it's like a habit. So you can kind of. This is laying the ground workings for the episode. Is the fact that this is like his.
He's got a routine.
Yes,
everybody's got a morning routine. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you survive a morning.
I'm not a morning person, so I definitely agree with that.
When he gets to Scotland Yard, Monroe's in his office, and he tells him to sit down, which is usually not good news.
No. William thinks he's in trouble.
Yeah, but when he sits down, Monroe says that he's there to offer him a promotion to chief inspector.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's good news, right?
It sounds, He's going to put in a good word, and the job is William's.
It's his, but it's in Glasgow.
And so that's the issue. That's when that drops is that it's in Glasgow. So it's not something. It is a bad thing. It sounds like Monroe kind of like said, "Oh, this is a great thing," and then like. No, it's in Glasgow.
Well, yeah, you can see William's demeanor completely shift when he finds out that it's not in London. So William does ask for time to think about it. Yep. And Monroe says, well, I'll be out of town for a few days. Let me know your decision when I get back.
And William has the letter of recommendation for the promotion in his hand, and he just throws it down on the desk, and that's when we cut to the title sequence.
Right, but before we go there, do we think this is just a convenient way to get William out of his hair?
Most definitely,
because he's causing trouble with Fitzroy.
Yeah, Monroe.
I was on that whole I think this is just convenient.
It is. Monroe makes it sound like he's doing William a favor, but really, he's getting William out of his hair. So that is totally the case. So title sequence goes through, and then after that, we're outside of
Eliza's office. Yep.
And Eliza and Moses. So Moses is in this episode are going over all these names, and we're trying to figure out what these names are. None of these people have any scandals, and Eliza's very frustrated by this.
Right.
And Moses says, Uncle of Lipton man throwing around money around town.
To hospitals and a factory making clothing for the poor.
Yeah, so obviously
so
very scandalous.
No,
not at all. No.
But yeah, like Eliza seems really upset, and we find out that Mrs. Parker is paying Eliza to run background checks on the men. So we established that earlier that Mrs. Parker wanted her to run background checks.
And this is for Hattie. These are prospective potential husbands for Hattie, her niece. So
and then Eliza has promised Hattie that she would find reasons why they are not suitable. So she's playing both angles here. Hattie's not paying her.
There's layers upon layers here.
She's doing that as a friend.
I like that. Yeah.
But Hattie doesn't want to get married.
Well, she not necessarily. She
for
wants
anything but love.
Yes, she wants to choose who she wants to marry, and so Moses quits. He says he's given it up. He quits digging in on these. He's like, I don't care about the ethics. It's boring.
It's boring. So, I have a reputation to protect. He says. And Eliza asks if Moses is asking for more money too, and he's like, No. Why? How much are you offering?
How much are you offering?
So everything has a price, but Moses was like mad that he's doing this. No.
And so
boring paper pushing work.
Eliza says that Hattie's going to talk to Mrs. Parker, and then Moses offers to talk to Mrs. Parker himself if the money's right.
The money's right. Yeah. Moses is the best.
Eliza laughs at this. And so after that, we cut to outside, and Eliza and Moses run into William, who's walking in.
And Moses and William have their little stare down, as they do.
Yeah, it's a brief inspector, and then he tips of his hat and he's out. So Moses leaves, and it's just Eliza and William.
Right, and William's like, "What case are you working together?" Because they're always working a case together, and William's always the last to find out, and it's usually something that he should know about.
Yes.
But Eliza changes the subject and talks about his waistcoat. And then she also has a favor to ask of him. Mm-hmm. She wants William to come to dinner on Thursday so she doesn't have to sit with Barnabas and Ivy alone.
Mr. Potts.
But William obviously is trying to interject. He wants to talk to her about something important.
Which is the promotion, of course. Yeah.
And...
So
I lost
Eliza thought that he wanted to talk about Moses, but no, it is the promotion. So William finally shares the news of the promotion.
Oh, right.
To become chief inspector, and Eliza is initially really happy.
Right, she congratulates him.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And William's like, it's in Glasgow, and her face she's like, oh, well, that's a shame. And
just like, that's exactly what she says. Oh, that's a shame. Never mind.
She's very dismissive, and Eliza thinks William will turn it down because he's always turned down jobs outside of London.
Right.
And William says, but this is for the chief inspector. And Eliza says, as was the job in Nottingham, and I seem to remember. And
they've had this conversation at least 3 times.
Yes.
And he is offended that she's just assuming that he's gonna stay here.
Yeah, she uses the word comfortable, and that's very offensive.
He does not like the word comfortable.
No, poor choice of words. William is angry and leaves.
And he says, I'm very seriously considering taking this job. I know I've said that before.
And so Eliza, who was waiting for a cab, is just like left alone, just like, okay.
What just happened?
Yeah. So then we cut to Hattie's. Yeah. And so this is the tea. So Hattie and Eliza are there having tea together.
Eliza's trying to talk Hattie into talking to Mrs. Parker about the fact that she wants to marry for love. And Mrs. Parker thinks Hattie doesn't have the time or looks to wait for love. And I also thought this was an interesting part of their conversation. Hattie thinks that everyone's in love with Mrs. Parker.
Yeah, that's really,
Does anyone actually like Mrs. Parker?
According to Hattie, a lot of that she's quite
all these gentlemen are really into her.
And also,
maybe we just don't see that.
I also made a note here that Hattie does a pretty decent Mrs. Parker impression at the beginning of this too. So
she's always doing her impression of Mrs. Parker. Yeah.
And Eliza gives Hattie a compliment. Any man would be lucky to have you as his wife.
Yeah, so, she hypes her up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Hattie gets this idea that because she's inspired by Eliza, like doing her own thing, she gets this idea that she's going to take her inheritance that she got from her father. She's going to buy her own house and find her own way. Mm-hmm. And as she's making her plan, she keeps turning to Eliza and is like, right?
Yeah.
And
she's looking for the encouragement.
And she says, well, I'm going to go see my accountant. Will you come along? And at first, Eliza says no. But then we soon see them in the next scene walking down the street together on their way to Hattie's accountant.
Yeah. So and the accountant's name is Mr. Norris. He manages the money, and he's a dreadful bully. And so yeah, exactly like you said. They're on the street. They're walking there, and Hattie says, "Thank you for changing your mind."
Yeah. As they enter his office, Hattie's kind of saying, Mr. Norris, trying to find him. She walks down to his office, opens the door, and screams.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Norris...
He's dead.
He's a knife stuck in his neck.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And this might actually be the most gruesome murder I think we've seen on the show so far. There's a notable lack of blood. It's not bloody.
Well...
But there's a knife stuck in his neck.
And he's also clutching a white flower that is also covered in blood.
Yeah. Blood-stained lily.
Yeah, definitely the body was posed. And yeah. So then we cut to when the scene when the police actually arrive.
Right, because Hattie called the police.
Yes.
She's at the station. Eliza is interfering with the police investigation.
Yes, Eliza's there, Fitzroy's there, Williams is there. They're all around the body. William explains rigor mortis to Fitzroy.
So that he can help figure out the time of death.
And Eliza has like this deja vu moment with this, which I didn't understand because I was thinking back to like earlier episodes and I'm like, I don't remember any earlier episode with this, but it's not an earlier episode.
No.
It's she says that it's two-staged.
And it feels familiar to her.
And like William estimates the time of death as being in the evening or nighttime.
Sometime last night, and then she goes 1:45.
Yeah, which is very specific. And it's because the clock has been stopped. And William's like, it has stopped. And then Eliza's like, no, it's actually like it is in the novel. And that's when we find out about the novel. So that's where the deja vu was.
Yes, 1:45 by Samuel Bedborough. And she says, you haven't read it?
And William's like, I haven't read it. And Fitzroy's like, me neither, but I do read a book once a week.
Once a week, and right now he's working his way through the Russians. And William just cuts him off. So Fitzroy's always trying to impress Eliza in some way.
Yes.
He has a crush on her, and I love it.
And William's a little bit frustrated because he realizes he's not very well read. He doesn't want to admit it.
He's not well read at all.
No,
none of it.
Not at all.
William pulls Eliza from the scene and tells her to go make a statement with Detective Phelps, which he asked her to go with Hattie to make her statement, but she refused. But Eliza can read through the lines, and she knows that William's trying to get rid of her because of the conversation they had earlier about his promotion.
Yep.
And she explains that by comfortable, he assumed she meant he lacked ambition, but she feels that his life is arranged just as he likes it. He's settled, which is another terrible word to use.
I was like, we go from comfortable to settled. That's even more insulting, William says. And Eliza's about to leave, but Fitzroy interjects. The victim was Samuel Bedborough's accountant. So Samuel Bedborough is the author of the book. He finds the name on
the visitor log or something like that.
So we know there's a connection with the actual author of the book where
how this murder was staged. Yes.
So then after that, we cut to outside, and Eliza's asking William to hire her for this case because she's read all the books.
Yes.
And then there's this nice little interchange back and forth. What's your fee? Wait. What was the first amount you thought about?
She basically says it would be smart for us to work together because it would benefit the taxpayers of London.
Oh, yes, that's good justification. And then the fee and then
the fee. And he goes, think of the fee. And she thinks about it, and he goes, okay, now half it.
Yep.
But she follows him with a smile because she's been hired. She's going to work the case.
She's just happy to be working.
And maybe she thought of a number unusually high in her head. So maybe she's going to get paid well.
Yeah. So
then now that they have a connection to the case, they go to see Samuel Bedborough, who is having a book reading at a local bookstore.
Willoughby's Booksellers, yes.
And when they arrive at the shop, the shopkeeper tells them that they have to wait in line. It was a private ticketed event.
Oh, and she mistakes William and Eliza for being married.
Right. And I wrote down this is a flashback to his ruined day off where he has to go, she's not my wife.
Yeah. So it's another there's a good parallel.
And Eliza tells the shopkeeper that she's a private detective. And the shopkeeper is just like, I've heard a lot of excuses, but never that.
And then William says, I haven't even read any of his damn books.
He gets
and so he's
frustrated. Loudly declares.
Loudly. The entire room goes silent.
Looks at him.
Eliza says,
I've read all of them.
Yeah. And so then we meet Miss Bedborough, who's Samuel's sister.
Yes.
And I put in parentheses here, suspect. Then
I know, doesn't she look suspicious?
She does. And then we cut to more of a private interview where William and Eliza are telling Samuel Bedborough about the crime, and Samuel is defensive about just a basic question. And so this is where like my I was like, wait a sec, this is a little bit weird.
So upset about
because
this?
It's something like if he's writing like murder mysteries, like he should know better.
He should know
that these are normal questions.
That these are questions that detectives ask.
And his sister is like totally chill about this. She just is like this is a normal
standard.
So like
calm down, just answer the questions.
Their dynamic was flipped right there.
Yeah.
And then I wrote, did she write his books?
You were on top of it from the start.
And then
they asked Samuel about his movements the night before, and he was staying at the Brabham Hotel.
Yeah, that's right. He doesn't want to go home. There was that thing where he
can't go home.
No, we find that out later. Yeah,
he's staying at the hotel while he finishes his latest novel. He had dinner with his sister, and then he wrote all night. That's his alibi. He's behind deadline as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And Eliza asks him questions about his work, which actually comes in handy later.
Mm-hmm.
He tells that he can write under any circumstance. He doesn't need a mood or like a desk or anything like that. He can write however he wants, like whenever he wants, sort of thing.
Which is weird because he says he's behind. So there's a lot of inconsistencies here.
She also flatters him a little bit and says Quarter to Midnight is her favorite novel. So that kind of loosens it up. And then William says that he enjoyed The Curse of the Crimson Shadow.
Which is not
one of Samuel's books.
No. So that awkwardness there. We cut back to
we're gonna cut away from that awkwardness and go to Scotland Yard. Eliza's kind of filling William in on the plot of Quarter to Midnight because he hasn't read it.
No,
and it's a tale of an author struggling for inspiration. It was semi-autobiographical. The protagonist is an author struggling to finish a book. He slowly goes insane. He believes his two best friends want to put him in an asylum, so he kills them both. But like Macbeth, he can't live with the guilt.
And then Eliza wonders if William knows of Macbeth. And William's like, yes.
I know the story of Macbeth.
And they go over their notes. There's nothing remarkable. Eliza is going to read the book again and suggests William does the same. Eliza leaves, and then William calls Fitzroy back in and asks Fitzroy to gather information on Mr. Norris and the associates and and also
write a short synopsis of Macbeth.
Because
so Fitzroy is like thrilled. Like he's like, oh my gosh, this is a job I can do, essentially.
He is so happy. He quotes when the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won. And so, like, basically...
He quotes Macbeth, and then William says, okay, make it one page.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're too excited about this.
Excited about this.
Later, William returns to the bookstore to buy Quarter to Midnight.
Yeah, and then Mrs. Willoughby, who's, I guess, the shopkeeper, I think that's her name. It's definitely Willoughby's is the booksellers. She's pressing William to buy an earlier book, and
she has so many book recommendations for him.
She's a true fan, and I wrote suspect, because I was like, is she a suspect? And then don't do just Alone in Greenwich. You want to do The Witch's Call, and then the
you
constable
have to read this one first,
because the constable in it's Welsh too, and William's like,
I'm not Welsh.
I'm an inspector and I'm Scottish. The Jagged Tear Miss Willoughby says that the Bedborough was withdrawn at the book signing.
Right. She noticed that his mood was a little different than it usually is. He usually shows up very cheerful, but he was very withdrawn and seemed upset. And it was before William came to talk to him.
So at this point, I was like, either she is telling the truth and he was upset, or she's a suspect and she's lying about this to throw...
Trying to throw
that's what I was thinking, like maybe throwing someone off.
I did not suspect the bookshop keeper at all.
I suspect everyone except for main characters. It could be anybody. So Yeah, after that,
William leaves with like a whole stack
oh yeah,
of
she
books.
slams down all the books. Would you like them wrapped?
At one point, he's like, "This sounds expensive," because she keeps adding other suggestions and other suggestions.
I thought he wouldn't actually go through with it, but then we cut to the next scene. He's at the bar and he has like all
stack
the
of
books.
It looks like he's settling down to study.
Yeah, at a bar.
Which
yeah.
I mean
that's
is
where,
that genius? Actually,
that's the perfect place to read a ton of books. At a very loud, noisy, boisterous bar.
Right, with some alcohol to make you a little bit sleepy.
Maybe, yes, yeah.
Yeah, and at the bar, Phelps has brought William a drink and commented that William didn't seem like much of a reader.
Which is true.
And then he checks in on how William's doing, like if there's any news he wants to share, maybe, perhaps.
Which is suspicious in of itself, because like William definitely sees through this and says that over the 10 years that they've worked together, Phelps has never bought him a drink. And Phelps is like, oh, people change. And William's like, people do. You don't. Phelps wants William's job, and he has a wife and 4 kids. Nope, 5 kids. And can't afford
to be subtle.
Yeah, no.
So Phelps is hoping that if William takes the job, he'll put in a good word for him to take his current position.
Yeah, since if William goes to Glasgow.
Because Phelps knows that William's turned down offers before, but they're both getting older, and the offers will soon stop coming.
Yeah, and he's just trying to push him into the situation for his own self, promotion.
Right.
And so Phelps looks at the book that William says, "Is that any good?" And William's like,
"No, it's terrible."
So then we cut to Eliza and William back and forth. There's like a montage between both of them where they're both reading at the same time. Where William's at the bar and
he's reading. Eliza's at her office reading.
Yep.
And she turns the novel in her hands. She had finished it.
Oh, yeah.
She turns the novel in her hands, and she notices the publisher imprint, Bellamy and Sons.
I did not even catch what this meant at the time.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so that's interesting. She sees something that we don't see.
Right.
And so then we cut to the next day, and William is getting his shoes shined. And William asks, how did you find me? And
he has a routine.
He has a routine, which we saw in the very beginning.
Right, so beard trim on Monday, jog track on Tuesday, shoe shine on Wednesday, and he cuts her off. He's like, all right, you made your point.
And so Eliza...
Eliza needs to see the murder weapon.
Yes. And so then we go to Scotland Yard next. William shows off that he's read the books, not just the book, but books.
Several books.
He's making up for lost time.
He shares that Samuel was raised in a workhouse. He references a lawyer in another book outside A Quarter to Midnight, and Eliza says she's surprised and impressed.
Yes,
which is again insulting to him.
Well, he mentions that it's amazing how she can compliment and insult at the same time. Yeah. Sensitive and settled. So the killer in A Quarter to Midnight used the same murder weapon in both murders.
Right, and so she needs to see the murder weapon because she has a suspicion.
She deduces that Mr. Norris may not have been the first victim.
He would be the second because the second murder victim had the knife lodged in his neck. And so when William shows her the photo of the murder weapon, we see that there is a horse on it, a galloping horse, and it matches the crest of Bellamy and Sons, which was also a galloping horse. So now they know where to go.
And Bellamy and Sons is the publishing company,
the publisher
of the book. So that's what she saw on the spine.
Yeah.
So they go there.
Do we want to take a quick break before we continue on? Yeah. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go to Bellamy and Sons. Yeah.
Welcome back. We were just at the point where they went to Bellamy and Sons, it's the publishing house, and they were they have to kick the door in.
The door is locked, and Eliza knocks politely, and William's like, "There's no time. Just knock the door in."
Yep.
And
they're not alone. He has his men with him to
I think 2 constables are along with them. Yep. It's not a big crew, but they have some people. So they break the door down and go into the office, and Eliza basically immediately finds.
Eliza knows almost where to go because she's read the book. And
That's true.
So just like the novel, down to the time.
Quarter to midnight. The clock is stopped. The body's staged with a white blood-stained lily on it. It's all the same as the novel.
And then we were talking with
Samuel.
Yep.
Yeah. So they immediately go to visit Samuel because he's looking real suspicious right now.
He's looking real suspicious, and it just doubles down at this point in the episode. I was like, there's a secret. I think Bedborough's sister is the author, and he's just the face. Because he says, "God's sake, must you keep asking these irrelevant questions?" And I'm like,
"These are normal.
Normal questions. If you're worth your salt as a murderer,
a detective writer,
I mean, like you should not be freaking out about these at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
super suspicious.
We found another one of your friends dead. Can we talk to you about it?" So Samuel shares that he had dinner with James Bellamy on Thursday night, and James seemed in good spirits. And they talked through Samuel's last chapter, and he gave him notes. And then Samuel says something about his mind being a little foggy, that he's not sleeping well.
Yeah.
And his sister interjects and says he's been up all night writing, and that's where he was last night.
Yeah, and there was also his hand was hurt as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So he said I slipped in the bathroom. Like it's the most awkward lie. Like
slipped I'm in surprised. The bath, yeah.
Well, just the way he said it too. Like this show has a lot of times where people are good at lying or bad at lying. This is
He's
one
bad
of those
at lying.
bad at lying. And so like I was surprised no one called him out on that, or I was like right. And so Bedborough assures them that he won't take his own life, like the author did in his book.
In the book, yeah.
And so William assigns a police detail to make sure that he's safe because his home is being renovated.
Right.
But it's not really, but that's what he says.
That's the excuse.
And William,
that's the other lie.
Yeah. And when William hands Eliza a note, it says, check his alibi.
Right. He makes it seem like she's going to send for more reinforcements, but it's really check his alibi.
Yep.
Eliza meets William later at Scotland Yard,
yep.
And she shares that the night porter saw Samuel leaving the hotel at 9 p.m., and he didn't return again until after midnight.
Yep.
So William thinks Samuel is the killer and replicating the plot of his own book, but Eliza thinks it's more likely that someone's trying to damage his reputation.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, I mean, closer.
Yep.
Closer to the truth.
and we find out also that 3 months ago, Samuel was arguing with a woman and they threatened to kill each other. And we find out that this woman is Francesca Belluccini, she's an actress.
She is an actress. So William sends Eliza to speak to the actress. And Fitzroy and William are off to the corner.
Yeah.
And I love this exchange because Fitzroy asks if they can make a pit stop on the way back to the office.
Yes, I forgot about this.
To buy tickets to a show. I can't remember if it's an opera or a play. And William just like stares daggers at him. And he's like, never mind, I'll go after work.
Yeah.
And William worries out loud about what would happen to Fitzroy if he leaves.
Yes.
And William also points out that if Eliza were handed this opportunity for a promotion, that she would jump at taking the job that he was offered. And she's like, sure, when women can be chief inspector, we'll have this conversation.
Yeah.
And he also...
Oh, this
is like real cringe, William.
He says, we don't all have the luxury of inheriting our father's business.
Yeah.
And I was like, and them's fighting words.
I don't think I think she would rather have her father than the business, you jork.
Yeah, that was not good.
And he immediately knows.
Oh, well, yeah.
His face is like, oh no.
Eliza's eyebrow raises. And you're like, Eliza's mad.
Yeah, surprisingly, she doesn't really say anything back to him.
No, but that's how. But some people,
she's real angry.
When they're mad, they get quiet. And so she just says, don't let me keep you, William. It's almost a time for your 3 p.m. whiskey. And she is like, because she...
And she leaves.
Oh, man.
And then he looks at the clock, and he looks at his whiskey, and he pours his whiskey.
Yeah, he deliberates, because he's like, am I going to break my routine
right.
just to spite her? And he's like, no, I'm going to go for the whiskey.
He's going to have the whiskey. He needs the whiskey. He's in hot water.
So then we go to Langdon Theater with Eliza, who's going to be interviewing Miss Belluccini.
Yeah.
Belluccini.
Yeah. I'm not sure. It's spelled like Belluccini.
Yeah. Eliza's mistaken for a maid.
Oh, yeah. She's sent away because the maids are supposed to be older than the actress.
Eliza's too pretty.
Too pretty.
So, Mrs. Belluccini and Bedborough were lovers for about a year.
Right. It was strictly physical.
Bedborough sent Mr. Norris to end the relationship. So weird. And
well, yeah, she says that he sent his little friend with a diamond necklace to make her go quietly, and that he's done this for many women in the past.
That Mr. Norris is the Grim Reaper, delivers the news. So
we know that Norris and Bedborough are much closer than Samuel was leading on.
So we have Bellamy, Bedborough, and Norris.
Yes.
Okay, and so then we cut to William. So, like, Eliza was at the theater. William is talking to his men about wounds and bodies, and how the stab wounds are essentially the same size, and so the murder weapon must be the same. And he sends his men to find out if the two men had the same visitor. So, did the same person visit both men around this time? So they're on their way out, and he stops Fitzroy from leaving because he wants to talk to him.
Right. And he lectures Fitzroy about teamwork and trying to fit in. He mentions, because Fitzroy, of course, quoted Shakespeare at one point during their visit at the coroner. And he's like, maybe don't do that.
Because Fitzroy's still happy about Macbeth. Anytime he can slip in a Macbeth quote.
He loves literature. He loves culture and plays. And I love Fitzroy. But so he suggests that Fitzroy try to assimilate with the men. And Fitzroy says, you sound like my father, which is probably the worst thing in the world to ever hear if you're William.
And William says, God forbid. So, And so then we cut to Eliza at her office, and Hattie shows up and Mrs. Parker is in distress. She
shows up late because she was comforting Mrs. Parker about her friend's death.
Mr. Norris.
So maybe there was something there. Maybe Mr. Norris really did like.
Maybe Hattie's not making all this up. Maybe there's like some. I mean, I had a note here earlier where it was
comfortable relationship.
Yeah, it was. Hattie was definitely feeling very strongly about the fact that.
She's very, very adamant that everybody loves Mrs. Parker. Yeah. But anyways, Eliza asks about Norris's relationship with Samuel, because if Mrs. Parker was so close to him, maybe Hattie knows. Hattie says that Norris was always mentioning Samuel, but he may have been doing that because he was trying to impress Mrs. Parker, but she got the impression that the two were thick as thieves. And they dined together several times a month. And she found out Norris had recently purchased a house for Samuel just down the street from her aunt. But then the most peculiar thing happened. And
Hattie says, I'm not one to gossip. and there's like the silence. Eliza's like, please do, yeah.
So Samuel bought this house. He was making renovations. But last week, the house was repossessed.
And we cut to the house. As she's talking about this, there's a nice overlay where she's still talking about it, but we see Eliza checking it out,
and there's a whole notice
of a repossession, sign on the door, unpaid debts. So then Eliza meets up with Moses later, and this is when she finds out that Bedborough was at the bailiffs last night trying to get a piece of furniture back, a writing desk.
Yeah, Moses basically gives her the update that Samuel's in a lot of debt. Despite staying in a nice suite, he's probably going to be kicked out soon because he owes all over town. And he was at the bailiffs and was trying to buy back a piece of furniture, but they refused. They want the whole bill paid or nothing at all.
Yeah, and that he can't write without this writing desk, which is entirely different than what he said.
So that was a clue. When he said he could write anywhere, he says he needs this desk to write.
And this is also where we find out that that's where Bedborough injured his hand. He tried to break in to the bailiff's office or this warehouse.
Oh, I wrote down that he got in a fight to get the desk back. Maybe I misunderstood the whole situation as I was taking
There
notes.
was both.
Okay.
He did try to break in. And so Eliza says to Moses, put his contacts out on the warehouse. And so
who's your contact at the warehouse? And Moses is going to get Eliza into the warehouse. At the bar,
we shift gears here. We're at the bar, and Fitzroy shows up.
He's there to drink with the men to show them that he can be one of the lads.
He's super awkward.
Yeah,
he bumps into someone.
They tease him for being young and saying it was past his bedtime, and then he turns to get a drink at the bar. I think he offers to buy for all the men.
He does.
Which is nice. Don't be mean.
Well, then they say, oh, you're getting milk or something like that.
Yeah, they mention that
really
they don't serve milk at the bar. he runs into somebody, and then Phelps teases him some more, and Fitzroy loses his mind a little bit, and he says, "Why don't you shut your mouth, Phelps?" And I was just like, this is not a smart thing. And Phelps calls him a brat.
Yes. And then
Fitzroy pours a drink over his head.
Yeah, he gets like a tankard of beer and just pours it over Phelps' head. And we know where this is going.
This isn't going to end well
for
Fitzroy.
We cut away before the brawl ensues.
Before the actual fight.
Yeah. So now we're at the warehouse with Moses and Eliza. And they find the desk. And there's some good dialogue here.
Yeah, so Eliza's walking in. She's like, well, no wonder he's so in debt. All of this stuff is so expensive. Mm-hmm. And the desk, they find the desk, and the desk is nothing special. It's just a common little writing desk. And Moses suggests
this is good.
That he may want the desk back for sentimental reasons. He said, I once knew a man who got into a knife fight over a rocking chair that belonged to his mother. And Eliza goes, you? And he says, no. He's just like, it was Moses. Moses got into the knife fight over a chair from his mother.
His mother, yeah.
Yeah, so so while this whole dialogue is happening, because Eliza's great at multitasking, she's feeling all over the desk. And she notices Harpocrates. I think I said that right.
You did.
On the desk.
Yeah, it's carved into the front.
And
who's the Greek god of silence.
Right.
And then she finds like a button in a secret compartment at the back of the desk with
all the original manuscripts.
Yep.
Are
and
in
they're
there.
all wrapped in a blue ribbon. And
Harpocrates is also the name of a lawyer in one of his novels. So that's
there's even a tie in there
together.
too.
So that lawyer makes his money defending murderers.
Yeah. And so Moses is like, why keep them hidden? And this is where like
Eliza knows. You can see on her face.
Yeah, but
she's made a connection.
But we cut away from them. So we don't as viewers, we don't find out.
But what does she know?
What does she know? And I think
But you already knew what she knew.
Well, I had my suspicions at this point. They're pretty strong because it was just too. Anyway, so. We cut to outside the Bedburrows apartment flat, and William is checking in, and Eliza hurriedly runs up and joins William. Where is he?
Yeah, she looks real worried.
Eliza barges in and pulls the curtains aside to reveal, and we're like, if he was the author, he'd be dead probably, because that's the thing.
Because the author ends his own life in the book.
Bedburrows alive and well. And then this is when
she says, I needed to confirm a suspicion.
Yep.
The author takes his own life in the book, but Samuel is not the author.
Yeah. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So we flash to a new room. I don't know if it's in the same suite or if it's in another location.
I think it's in the same building, but it's a different location.
Okay.
Because they got there quick, and they were there to be right in time.
Just in time, because Samuel's sister's there, and she's writing, and she looks at herself in the mirror.
She writes the end on the paper there.
Oh, so did she write the end?
I was thinking it's either like a suicide note or the end of a story that she is writing, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And I think it was the latter. She was writing the story,
and it's done.
And
so she picks up this knife. It's real dramatic. She's looking at the clock. It's almost quarter to midnight.
She can't take her life until it's the time, because it has to match the story.
But my question is, how does she stop the clock?
She wouldn't be able to. I was thinking that too. It would just keep going.
So she's ready. Eliza opens the door and interrupts just in time.
Yep, they burst in.
And William tells her to put the knife down, and she does.
And then so now she's. They're interrogating her at Scotland Yard next.
Right, because now she is the prime suspect.
Cat's out of the bag.
Very guilty.
She's definitely, she wrote the books to help her brother.
Their mother died in the workhouse. Their dad wasn't around, and Samuel wanted to make something of himself.
And so she was there to support that. And
because he had no talent.
No. So
Samuel begged her not to put her name on the cover because he'd be humiliated by his spinster sister putting food on the table. Like, come on. It doesn't matter. I don't know that it matters. Yeah. And she was going to ask for her name to be put on the next cover, but Bellamy, Norris, and Samuel convinced her that the readership would be half that of a male author.
Yep. Yeah. And she and she was happy and content because she had a comfortable home and security.
Right. That's what was promised to her.
But then she found out the truth that Samuel's debts were all consuming, and then she
Bellamy and Norris did nothing to stop him because they were still getting paid as long as the books were happening.
This is a revenge episode.
Yes. She wanted revenge.
Yeah.
She says, all this time I have let my brother shine. For what? To end up a poor spinster back at the workhouse?
I know.
So, I mean, I get it, girl.
She wanted to have her moment of fame in death.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we end with her interrogation.
Yeah, so I thought that was the end of the episode.
Yeah, it could have been.
But then there was more.
Oh, there's more.
There was more.
So they're outside the interrogation room in the hallway, and this is where we kind of like William and Eliza are talking to one another, and William says, "Want me to arrange for a lift home?" And Eliza's like, "No," and William is being like, "This politeness is exhausting."
Right, they're being very polite to each other. He apologizes kind of for what he said about Eliza's father's business, and Eliza apologizes kind of for teasing him so much. They both have their little excuses of why they did it.
Eliza says she's envious that William is fulfilled in his life. That's not a lack of ambition, but something to celebrate. And
he's been able to do what he wants to do and make inroads with where he wants to go.
And he has true contentment, is what Eliza says.
Yeah.
And that is why William is one of the people Eliza respects most, which I thought was a really nice moment there.
This actually was a really nice moment. All of it was really nice.
And then William says, when you say one of the people, like, and then so Eliza just smiles, and then that could have been the end of the episode, but no.
William goes into his office and finds Fitzroy so beat up.
Yeah.
Fitzroy stands up right away, and he says that he tried to go for drinks and fit in.
Yeah.
And he couldn't go home to his father like this, like all beat up and a disappointment to masculinity, I guess.
Yeah.
And William offers him his spare room, which is
really nice. Yeah.
Like, I really, really like this little bromance that's brewing between the two of them.
Yes, this is definitely an endearing moment between, and like William is once again less of a jerk.
Right, so I know. It balances out the fact that he's like, well, your father's dead, and that's why you have what you want.
Yeah. To Eliza. Yeah. So it's the scale still has a bit to go. So anyway, so that could have been the end of the episode.
That could have also been the end, yes.
But no, the next day,
we see William going through the exact routine that we saw him going through in the morning. Like, exactly.
Yeah, I put eerily identical, and then in parentheses I put Groundhog Day. Because I was like, this is
like down to Violet looking at him like,
yeah, or the fact that he stops because the carriage is going to be at the same time. Like,
he stops, he backs up, the carriage goes by, he's still reading his paper.
So it's man, Violet, and then he's at outside Scotland Yard, and he says, "Again, Norman," because it's the same criminal from the first one.
Oh my gosh!
So I was like, "Oh, that's great."
And I think at the moment that he's about to rap on the sign, he realizes just how much routine he has in his life.
And again, Eliza said that he had true contentment, and so this is kind of like her words kind of hit home with him, and so I'm thinking to myself, he feels like this is his home.
Yeah.
He's not going to accept the Glasgow thing. And I'm like, unless they throw like a weird curveball, which this show does.
Hang on to your pants.
Yeah. So then they go into he goes into Monroe's office to tell him that he declines the offer.
Right. Well, first he asks Monroe if it was business or pleasure, and he said,
the trip.
Yeah, the trip it was neither. It was 2 days with his wife's family. And William looks like, I commiserate. I am sorry. Yeah. But yes, William had time to think, and he turns down the job. And while Monroe had hoped that William would take the promotion because Fitzroy's father, the police commissioner, wants William gone.
And Monroe says, "You're going to take the job in Glasgow because there's ne'er a job for you here."
Yeah.
And
that's the end.
That's
the end. That's what we leave us with. So William might not have a job.
No. So it's just going to be Miss Scarlet.
It's just going to be
and the Duke.
This is when they change into Miss Scarlet and Moses.
Yeah. That'd be good. Or in Fitzroy. Or Miss Scarlet and someone.
And Fitzroy.
And fill in the blank.
She could teach Fitzroy things too.
Maybe they could start calling him the Duke. I don't know. I still don't know. Did I miss? We didn't really talk about that yet.
I don't think they established like the exact origins of his name.
The Duke.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe that'll be in a
We do know his background,
episode.
that he grew up in the workhouse, but I don't think they've established why he's the Duke.
Nope. That'll be for another episode, maybe.
Yeah,
we'll
maybe.
See. Tune in again because we're here at the end of this.
There's another episode in season 2 that we have to get through. And then it's season 3. And by the end of season 3, we'll be caught up and ready for season 4 when it drops, probably this winter.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know how much they filmed with the writer's strike and everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's speculation.
We probably got a little bit of grace period, but like if you're listening to this in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully you can maybe like listen back to previous episodes.
Just go all the way back to season 1, episode 1 of Miss Scarlet Summer and listen to all of it and rewatch it all.
Yeah. And listen to us and watch us as well if you happen to stumble across
Do Postscript Bingo. Yeah. All of those good things. Tell your friends about the podcast. Yeah. Write in and tell me how much you love Moses, because I would love to hear how much you love Moses.
Send us an email at ps@witf.org.
So yeah, and if you are doing the PS Bingo, that's the email you want to use for your clues. As you find them, let us know. And at the end of the season, you'll get a YouTube video revealing all of the clues at the end if you email us.
I know I'm going to be part of that video, but I also want to see that video because I want to see what I missed.
What did I miss? Yeah. Christina, tell me, what did I miss? And if you love Postscript, review us.
Please do.
On your favorite podcast platforms, like, subscribe, and comment on youtube.com/@WITFmosaic. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, and we'll see you for the last episode of the season.
The finale. We got to find out if William has a job.
Yeah.
Ugh, okay.
Maybe the whole show moves to Glasgow.
Oh, maybe.
There you go. I don't know. So we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
See ya.